needing to make another video on more details. Um, the only way that you're going to able to provide proof of what I have to say, I couldn't tell you that I'm, Father, Mother, Holy Spirit, that, with me saying that what had happened with all these events with my mother, Frankie, and my immediate family, all the terrorizing things that were happening, the continuing targeting that's going on, with every bit of personal information to use against me and my mother, and then try to have my mother and her twins turn against me. And it all has to do with homosexuality and their transgenders movement. Because they know that my mother's straight, and they want to be able to sever the connection I have with her to make it about how I can get away with, how not me, but how they can get away with whatever they want to get away with. Rapes, money, fame, whatever it is. This is really about family. This is about putting me down. This is really what this is about. But I say this with the most honesty. Some you will be able to verify. If for some reason they just don't let me talk to my mother, and she's perfectly fine, like perfectly mentally healthy, she can drive herself to places, which I know is not the truth. I know my mother is mentally, can't remember a lot of things, is having a lot of health problems. And it is because of the trauma, the poison that they used, physical poison, and the trauma that they did. So I wanted to say this because my mother's triplet sisters, or my aunts, are probably taking good care of her, without a doubt. But I think it's important because this is what I want to share. Now, I talked about this story. You'll be able to verify this with Frankie. You will be able to verify at least some of it with Julian as well. If Frankie has a very pinpoint, sharp memory, he will be able to verify what I'm going to tell you. About the event that happened, I talked about there was this Native American Indian guy, and he said he was like 2/3, whatever, like a portion, because there's a lot of Native American Indians that are mixed. But my father had a pretty high percentage of Native. And I talked about that we went on this RV trip. If you watched my other video, and everything that happened. And I remember the smell. I remember saying something to my mother and father, and my mother was like, oh no. My mother wasn't covering it up. I'm telling you right now that my mother's not covering it up because she's selfish. You absolutely have no choice in these circumstances of life. If you want to survive, you better give them anything. You better give these homosexuals and these transgenders anything they want. Because if you don't, you're not going to have a place to rest your head, to sleep, to eat. And they will throw you to the streets like what they did to me. You are not going to survive. And if you don't have an education, and you're not from this country, and my mother is from Mexico, you're even at the total mercy of anyone. I believe, with my being as a person, my father, Raymond Palomo, who is now deceased, was an incredible blessing to my mother and me and my brother, my immediate family, Julian and Frankie, who grew up in this 1040 Osceola house that we grew up in. Now, this guy that I talked about that many years ago, we went on an RV trip, and Julian was very young. I want to say, because at that time, Julian was already living at the house. Julian was already born, so I was somewhere around 7 or 8 years old. I want to say I was around 7 or 8 years old. So Julian, I remember, was just a little toddler. He might be able to remember being in an RV trip. Anyway, well, I talked about all this story, and, they were having, if you watch my other video, they were in great company. They were just in really great company. The Native American Indian guy, sort of Hispanic-looking guy, and my father. And every time I'd go up to the front, and ask them, he was like, oh, we're just talking, son. Just go over there. We got to talk about some stuff. And I guess that meant to me that they're talking about adult stuff, or maybe experiences that they don't really want me to hear, adult stuff, because I was a kid. and they're laughing and they're talking and they're talking about other all sorts of topics and whatnot. Um, and I guess they were having a Native American Indian moment or something. And anyway, when we were sitting at this table, and I don't know why I said this. It had to be because I didn't know what the word meant, and I remember somebody had said something. I don't know what it was, and this someone had either brought it up to me. I didn't know what it meant, and I was just a kid, and I asked my father out of nowhere, and everything was all the good vibe and everything, good in company, where we're all sitting at the dinner table, and at the dinner table it was like a rectangle fancy table, and there was my mom, my dad, and at the very end of the table was this Native American Indian, half Mexican looking guy. He looked very formal, educated, kind of not necessarily nerdy dressed, but very formal. And his wife, which I don't remember what she really looked like. I don't think she was a real female. I think she was a transgender. And the reason I say that is because my mom didn't talk to this lady a whole lot, and I knew how my mother behaved. My mother behaved like a caterer to anyone to make sure that us kids were going to be safe and to always take the lead of my father. And I remember my mother, I was sitting, I get to tell him, I said, "What does gay mean? Dad, do you know what that means?" I was like, "What? Why did I remember seeing it on TV or something. I don't know what it was, but I didn't know what it meant. And there was nothing really homophobic that was going on. I just, for some reason, brought it up because I didn't know what it meant. And I remember my father getting like upset, but he wasn't pissed. He was mad at me because I brought it up at the table. Like I said something, and he looked at me, and I always knew what my father meant. Like when he sort of gave me this sort of understanding, like, we have to be quiet, or we have to just not say anything, or just straighten up. Like, I need to straighten up. Anyway, so he just kind of looked at me, and then he looked away because he knows this guy. As soon as I did it, the vibe changed, and the guy, he goes like this, and he goes, like, "You're not one of us. You're not one of the gays." This is the day after having a great company with this guy. And I remember, I'm telling you, this is 100% memory, okay? The guy's making like a taco, and I'm looking at this guy, and my dad kind of puts his head down. He kind of puts his head down a little, not head down a little, but he's kind of, and he's not, and I know I knew my father, he was acting, he was trying to not ruin the situation, okay? And this guy and he goes like this, and the guy looks at my father, and he's sitting to his left, and he goes like this, and he's putting his taco like this, and he goes, "Here, I'm going to get this right here." And he goes, and he goes like this. And I don't know what that understands in the gay community, homosexual community, where two gay men, it's not sexual toward one another, it's just their vibe, it's their thing, where there's a betrayal, like, within themselves, because it happens. There are, two gay men, there's a betrayal or something. And I could tell by looking at my father, I said something to ruin that relationship, or the vibe between the two. And he looked at my father, and he was kind of wanting to take the charge of lead of things, like to say, "Our gays unite. We take control of everything. We the ones unite. We own everything." And so that's the kind of vibe he was behaving like. And so as he's reaching, he goes, "Yeah, I'm going to get this right here." And so you got to keep in mind, my mother's a real woman. My father's having sex with my mother. I had seen my father with a condom on, with an erection, coming out of the bathroom in the middle of the night, not knowing that I was sleeping in the living room, or it was late at night, or I remember just being asleep, and I was in the living room, and he was having sex with my mother. Like, it wasn't loud sex or anything, but I just happened to see him walk over there with an erection and put a condom on. Okay? For those that don't know, my father, he had I don't know what you call it, but you know the snippet deals? Dr. Tang can verify this. You could medically, in the medical field, you can probably look this up and verify this. My father had what you call, I don't know what it's called, but it's a medical thing that they do with guys where they snip your testicle tube that creates sperm, and it's there's a number of straight guys, a lot of guys that do it, so that when you have sex with women and your wife or whatever, usually it always happens when they're older, because most guys usually when they have kids when they're younger, it prevents you from ever producing sperm again. You can still ejaculate, you just can't produce sperm anymore. So the sperm that travels, I think you still produce sperm, but the tube that travels through the testicle to the penile doesn't travel anymore because it's been snipped, so you can't inject a female with sperm. My father had that completed, and he told me when I was a kid, and my father had this done to me, and he told me the story and how he had it done. Dr. Tang, who was a doctor that diagnosed me, is the doctor that assigned him, because that was my father's doctor who had that done for him. And so he had that snip, so my father couldn't ejaculate. And this was, I don't know why my father would have had a condom on, but he had it around that time that I saw him with erection in the condom. It was around that time. I was like 7 or 8 years old when my father had that done. Because he said he didn't want to get my mother, he didn't want to have any kids, he didn't want to have any pregnant, have a baby. Because he was worried that my father told me this, like he's sitting me down sober, and just having a conversation like it was regular while watching TV. He goes, yeah, I had that done. He goes, I don't want to have a baby, I'm already really old, and I don't want to have to worry about having a baby. And he told me this, and he had it done. And my father told me, I'm still going to get to this story, to this sitting at the dinner table, right? But hold on. And he tells me that he actually watched the doctor do it. And he said that he watched it, and the doctor gave him like a mirror, and he said that the doctor just puts like some numbing medication, and then he says that it doesn't hurt, and he says he watched the doctor go into his testicles or whatever, make a little incision and snip it, and he said he watched him do it, or something like that, of those natures. But so my father could no longer get a woman pregnant. That is something that I know a gay man would not do, because you're attracted to men. You would never want to have sex with men. Why? Even if you're having sex with men's sperm, why does it matter? You're not going to get anybody pregnant. And that's what my father did. You can verify this with Dr. Tang. You can verify this in the medical records. My mother knows, and Frankie knows about this as well. And I think Julian. I don't know. I think Julian may have been too young. He may have not even heard that story. But, okay, so when we're sitting at this dinner table, this guy, I remember going, oh, you're not one of us. Like that. And I remember this, and my father kind of had his head down, and he looked at me and he goes, why did you say something? Well, you know who's in charge? like, oh, the gays are in charge, like we was a team. And he looked at me, and the way, I was sitting across the table from him, and he looks at me like, you say something. What do you say something for? And this guy looked, because as soon as he looked at me, this guy, he goes, yeah, I'm going to get this right here. And he did this to my father, and he's looking at it, he goes, yeah, I'm going to get this right here, and then I'm going to get this. And he goes like this. So I think it's important for me to talk about this, because my father, this is the one and only time ever in my lifetime where that I can think of at any moment now, out of all the videos, all experiences, where he was shunned away from a gay man, from a gay individual, because he suspected he was having sex with a woman. Because he knew my mother was straight. I mean, my mother, without a doubt, my mother was like a beggar, like a peasant, like an old granny lady, helping, like a peasant. And so peasants are always in the order of other people, always at a given time, very much like myself, and the abuse that they did to me, still to this very day. And that was the story of it. And I remember leaving that house. We were leaving, and my father, like, we got shunned away as a family to get the fuck away from get the fuck away from me. You're not one of us. We're leaving the house. We're leaving the house, and that guy never called again. My dad never spoke to him again, and he shunned us away. And my father, when we're getting in the car, he was angry, and it wasn't like angry at me. He was angry at the situation that he wasn't being accepted, is how he behaved. He was upset at me, but I could tell that it was like, why did you say something? Like, why did you say something? Because, remember, there are bisexual people out there that will have sex with a man and have sex with a woman. Now, I am not that. And I don't believe that if you can get if you're truly are gay, you can't get an erection if there's a woman. You have no desire. Like, you can't. Like, you won't be able to, because you're not attracted to women, and that's okay. You're born different. You're not getting. I don't hate people because you just don't. If you see a vagina and a beautiful pair of breasts and a beautiful, woman, you're not going to get an erection. Like, you don't attracted to that. You're not going to get an erection. You can't. My father would when I was a kid, would tell me, and he goes, yeah, when I was younger, I could, he goes, I can get an erection easy with women, but man, when I'm old now, he goes, if there was a beautiful woman in front of me, very young, I'd get an erection, but yeah, I'm older now. It takes a lot more for me to get an erection now, son. But it was like a professional talk, the way he talked to me, almost kind of like a doctor almost. And, it wasn't perverted in any way, sexual perverting in any kind of way when he spoke to me. He was just kind of like, yeah, that's what we do with women. Yeah, we have sex with women, yeah, and he was kind of like that attitude, like, that's what we do, son, yeah. So, I think it's important because I know a lot of the details. Like, when my father lost the ability to get an erection, he started to ask for Viagra, I think, and then before they even invented Viagra, and this is when my mother started to tell me that my father started to drink a lot and he started to kind of go, not crazy, but very angry all the time. And it was because he couldn't have sex with a woman anymore, and he was getting upset. And so he was very young. He was not very young. He was old at that time. So, but I wanted to say this because I know the details. I was all there for it with my mother. My mother will be able to verify this with you if she's perfectly fine, which I know she's not, but let's just say she is. I get a surprise and she's perfectly healthy mentally and can remember all the things that she can. She will be able to verify this with you. But this is the only time that we were shunned away, because my father got shunned away because he was a full homosexual. The reason he was grabbing his taco and like, oh, I think I'm going to get this too, and I want to get this too, is because I think he knew or maybe met guys like this where you want to be able to survive in the world and you want these things, but you can't. So you're willing to get to sleep with this woman, and then you'll get this for it, and if you sleep with this woman, you'll get this for it. And I remember him My father, he didn't look back. We didn't say like, "Oh, we're good." It wasn't a goodbye. It wasn't a good goodbye. It wasn't. We left sort of in a hurry, like being shunned away from the house. Frankie can verify this, and my mother. Julian can at least probably verify it, saying that he remembers just on an RV trip. Because Julian, I think at that time, Julian, I think was like 3 years old. Julian was like 3 years old. And I remember my mother always being very nervous around Julian, like always trying to protect him, right? Because that's how moms are. That's how real women and moms are. They want to protect their child. They want to protect their baby. And that's what happened. So, I want to say this because Frankie's going to want to hear this story. Frankie could probably verify this with you as well if he's perfectly healthy and a sharp memory. If Frankie has a great memory and sharp memory that's going on, he will be able to tell you that. So, but I say this because I know that my father, it's an incredible blessing that my father was the person that he was, because he was going to pay the suffering to give me, my mother, and my brothers a better life. And he was willing to do it to make sure, because you are not going to get anything in this life unless you go along with what the homosexuals and transgenders tell you. If you do not go along with what they tell you to do, if you don't obey and stay submissive, and in a lot of cases get raped by them, you're not going to get anything in life. They control the money, they control the police department, they control mass crowds in huge numbers. Yeah, we understand that there are gay men that hate other gay men because they realize, oh, you're not supposed to be fucking little kids, but they give them a small pat on the hand, and that's it. But I think it's important for me to talk about this, so that you understand. I was there. My father got shunned away from this guy. My father, when I grew up, and I used to go swimming with him all the time. Like, I'm telling you, like 3 days a week after he had his heart attack, we used to get these checks stuff. Back in the day, for those that remember, me, my father, and Frankie, these are the places that we used to always go to. We used to always go to, and there's my dad's red pickup truck, Rosemead Swimming Pool. Back in the day, Rosemead Swimming Pool, they changed it up a whole bunch, but we were there. And back then, you used to be able to buy square tickets for like $20, and you would get these passes, and it was just cardboard, or it was like cardstock paper, tear it off, and you get a ticket so you can get in. You could buy packets of it. We used to buy packets of it because we used to go swimming all the time. And in this swimming pool, there was only white people. I never saw a Mexican person at this place, but my dad, I remember, was very stubborn to say that I can sit down in here and eat. I can go in swimming. I can go in a swimming pool with everybody. Why does it matter if I'm Mexican or colored? Why can't I swim with these white people? I'm just swimming in a swimming pool with them. I'm not doing anything wrong. And so my father had this sort of, because he grew up in he was born in 1925. So he understood, if he didn't have that mentality, he wouldn't have been able to graduate university. Because my father grew up understanding that you can only drink from the dirty fountain, and you can only go to the dirty bathroom. You're not white like the rest of the superiors. And so that my father didn't like that. My father always believed that he has the right, like any citizen, especially since he served in the United States military during World War II, he should be able to sit down, eat at any restaurant after the racism had ended, where they don't allow colored people in the restaurants. You can't, if you're colored, you can't sit down at certain restaurants. Before they ended that, or after they ended that, he always was like that. I should be able to go to a swimming pool where there's white people, and then not where it's more luxury than anyone else. I'm not any different. Just because my hair and my skin color is different from you shouldn't mean that I just can't go swimming. I'm not doing anything bad. I'm just there swimming. I'm just there eating at a table. I'm no different. And my father, I remember getting racist shit from him all the time. Like, and he was stubborn. He'd just look at him like, come on, let's just go. You know, let's just go and we're going swimming. And I remember that, you know, like, since my dad was sort of Native American Indian looking, dark complected, native, like an Amazonian dark complected, it didn't pass well with people. And sometimes it would be like, oh, he's just swimming, but there was only white people. We were the only colored people there. I was the only kid with black hair there. And, you know, my dad, we would always go like, was it like 3 times a week or something like that? Because he had a heart attack and he'd always walk back and forth. Frankie can verify this as well. My father never really swam laps. He did maybe once or twice. The entire time, all he did was jump in the pool and just walk back and forth. Get exercises. And he would just kind of just do this. And he would just get his exercise because he had a heart attack and they said he needed to exercise. So I would go with him to go get exercising with him. He said, let's go swimming. And so he would always get his exercise. And I'd always say, hey, Dad, you want to go do this? No, son, I can't. I have to do my exercise. I have to do my walking exercise. And that it was such a routine for several years. And, but I thought it was important for me to talk about this because, you know, I don't know the whereabouts of my biological mother. I'm only talking to her triplet sisters or twins, and I have no communication with Frankie. And as far as I know with Frankie, I don't know if they're using an electronic machine making me think that I'm talking to Frankie, and I'm not even actually talking to him. But Frankie will be able to verify this as well, because Frankie I used to go mostly with my dad alone, but there was half the times, I'd say about half the times, I used to go there with Frankie. So Frankie can verify this. So we used to go swimming to get because he had a heart attack, and he needed to get exercise. So, and it worked. He got his exercise, and it kept his heart healthy for many more years. So, I think it's important to talk about this. Whatever happened with Frankie and Michael Jackson experience, it followed us everywhere we ever went. Like, it exploded. Now it's easy to access this information through the internet, but it exploded with huge amounts of people through the entire LGBT community about what had happened. So I think it's important for me to talk about this, you know, because of my mother and her health. I have not had any communication with my mother at all. I've only been talking to her sister triplets, and that's as close as I ever got with my mother. And since the last time I ate at the dinner table at Christina's restaurant, and that was the closest that I ever talked to my mother. And I talked to her, she could not communicate. There was something, and I didn't want to say she can't, because I didn't know that my mother was a triplet at that moment in his time. Otherwise, I would have said something. But I was trying to plead to her, like, you know, what is happening? What's going on? And I'm telling you, I'm telling you, when we were in that crowd of people, every person in that fucking crowd was like, you could feel the energy, like, we're going to tell you Hector what to do. No, we're protectors of society. We tell her pussy what we wanted. We tell her, like, they were just, like, after me. Like, and my mother could sense that she had to, like, throw me away. Like, I could tell by looking at my mother, she was like, I can't do anything for you. Like, it's not like I can't do anything for you. It's like, I'm scared because of what these people are doing. Including the waitress that was there. And so, I don't know who's involved. In my opinion, time is just ticking away. Time is just passing by. And there's a reason why they're doing that. And there's no, out of all the cameras and recording devices and everything, there's no resolution that's ever happening. And I can tell you this, they have so much control over her twins. It is an unbelievable paramount of control manipulation, what they're doing to them. Because they want to target me and my mother and get away with it with what happened to my brother Frankie for so many years and for the president and Michael Jackson. Because even though that Michael Jackson had no part of it. He just shows up for a couple minutes and leaves. Doesn't change the fact that they go, you know, that their leader of the gay community needs to become the leader of the world, and he did. But it doesn't matter. We didn't do anything. We never brought it up. We never talked about it. We went about our business in life. And I think that it's important for me to talk about this because let's just say that the word got around, which you don't understand how vengeful and tracking these motherfuckers are when it comes to the gay individuals and the transgenders. That this guy sitting at the dinner table, the reason he started saying, I think I'll get this, and then I want to get this, and he goes, the reason he did that was because he knew Miguel raped Frankie, and he didn't want to say anything. He wanted to see if my dad knew. And you know how he was dressed? There's a photo of Miguel dressed in jeans and a blue dress shirt. Like, you know, like the jail t-shirts. Not a t-shirt, not like a dress shirt, but like a formal cloth long sleeve shirt and jeans, and with his shirt tucked in and a belt. He was dressed like that. Like Miguel. Now, this guy, if he didn't get insulted because he was thinking of my father, he may have been playing my father stupid the whole time, knowing that the word got around because everyone knew about it, and he knew, and he was after my father to find out if he knew, thinking that maybe this guy is the one that's raping Julian or Frankie and Hector, and then we could put the blame on him. And he never touched me. I never saw him do anything. I never saw him. I talked about this before. I seen Frankie pick up something off the ground, but I don't remember. Frankie will be able to tell you this. If Frankie tells you he never, I talked to Frankie about it. Frankie would have said, I think Frankie would have said something about it. I think it would have been a good chance he would have said, because he got in a feud with my dad, and if he knew, since we were so close in the family, he would have said something. He would have said something like that, but at least I think maybe he wouldn't have. You have to ask him. But this guy, there's two choices in this situation. He either knew about Miguel and he was trying to scope out my dad, and he brought our family to scope out the situation. The other one is it was also, which would have been related to, are you one of our gays or are you one of the straights like Celestina? Oh, because he did this. And when I think about it, when I look back, that every time I kind of talked to this guy for just a very quick talk, and I looked up when I was in the RV, it very much to me seems like this guy possibly knew. Do you see how dedicated these homosexuals, these gay men are doing for the gay movement and for the gay team? So I wanted to make this video for my mother and the people that are hopefully protecting my mother and the stories that had happened, because you're only going to get them from me. And to Frankie verifying for Julian as well. So I think it's important for me to talk about my mother would dearly love and cherish me for sharing these stories when she can't anymore. And there's something that I want to wrap this up with this video with. I went to the Magic Time Machine and I can't even use the restroom. I got up to use the restroom and they're chasing me inside the bathroom. And they're getting people to look and behave exactly like Kenneth. And they're persecuting me in the bathrooms. When I was leaving, like this, when I went to the bathrooms, I had to urinate, and they immediately knew that I had to go use the restroom because I was on the way on the other side. I had to get up and I had to swiggle through all this area just to go to the bathroom because it's on the other side. and I'm walking, and I get in there, there's already a guy in the bathroom mysteriously. And I have to wait, and I just wash out my hands, make sure, and then wait for maybe 2 seconds. He gets out, and he makes sure he makes eye contact with me, like he's in charge, like I'm the one that's going to tell you what's going on. And I don't say anything. But while I'm waiting there for a couple of seconds, there's a guy runs right behind me, following me, that looks and behaves like Kenneth. They get somebody to do this, and he goes by the trash can. He goes, "We're gonna fight for Kenneth. He's the one that was a good angel, and the one that was." And this is how they're persecuting. I can't even go to the bathroom use, so I go back and sit down after using the restroom. The waiter wasn't very nice to me at all. He was treating me very much kind of like scum, and he scums me about my dead sister, because there's a, like when you go to the Magic Time Machine, they have a car that's like a Hitler's car. It's like a Nazi Hitler's car, and they have a salad bar buffet there. Well, that's what they have there. And when I buy the bar, he goes, "Yeah, can you come with me a second? Let me tell you." And he goes like this, and he looks at me, and he goes like this, and he goes, "Yeah, it's all yours." And the reason he's doing that is like, he doesn't have to do that. I know where the salad bar is. What he begins to do is begin to tell me about my dead sister's coffin and my dad's funerals, the dead body of my loved ones. And he begins to persecute me. He goes, "Yeah, look what you did. You just want a buffet, don't you, huh? Look, you see how Kenneth was the fucking hero. And this is what he does to me when I'm there. But I don't ever say anything. When I'm walking in there, every single person in there is fucking focused on me. And I'm not kidding you. When I'm walking through there, there's a guy that works there that makes the balloons. This guy is viciously targeting me. Like, as I'm walking to go to the bathroom or walking to go to the salad bar, I happen to walk by, and you kind of skim through an eyesight of people walking by, because it has a lot of swiggles where you'll see people disappear and then walk, disappear, walk. And he looks at me like all fucking crazy, like I'm gonna go fuck your sister. I'm gonna tell you we're gonna sabotage your shit. And I know what this means when he's looking at me, but I don't say anything. And he's the guy that works there that does the balloons. He's kind of built, white guy, blonde hair guy. This is what he's doing there. And I've seen this guy sell there several times. He's no good news there. But anyway, as I'm leaving, after I finish my meal, I walk by to look where I saw my sister Michaela. And when I walked by there, just to take a look, because they wouldn't let me sit there anymore, they had put me somewhere else. They said they already booked a table. So while I'm walking out the door, I look over just to look, and I see this real skinny, half white, half black kid. He's a handsome looking kid. I mean, he looked like a half white, half black kid. Very light complected for a black guy. Looked like he was 17, 18 years old. He looked really young. He looked like he was about 18 years old. And he's just sitting he's sitting right where I saw Michaela, and sort of just cleaning up the table. And he just kind of looks and he goes. He doesn't make eye contact with me. He doesn't look at me, but he just knows that he's been told to do this, I'm assuming, as I walk by, just because that's what I'm going to see. And so I don't say anything. I don't give any bad gestures, bad faces, and I just look and I just go about my business and leave. And I think this is important because, Michaela, please be careful. I went to the doctor, and that's the end of the story. So, but please, Michaela, like, even when I went to the doctor's office, one of the lobotomists, the person that takes blood out of people, asked me what was on my hand, and I said, "This is my sister Michaela." I said, because there's a lot of bad people on them and a lot of bad attention, and I just want her to be safe, and I just kept it very short, and that was it. I said she was never a part of my life, and I always wanted a sister, and I already had it, and I told this lady, I was like, I already had a sister that died. I don't want anything to bad happen to her. And I didn't say this, but I also wanted to honor the biological father that I had by the name of Hector, because even if he's very old, you're going to need me, and you're going to want me, to try to protect and help your daughter and my biological blood sister, Michaela, to help her, whatever it is I can to protect her. And that's why. Because so many people have profiled me, a complete document of every detail of my life, and sending this information to the entire gay and transgender community to target my family members and me, including relatives, that it's important that's why I post everything on Facebook all about my business, because it doesn't matter. They're recording me right now, they're displaying all the information, they know things, every detail they know about. So I think it's important for me to talk about this. And I can tell because the way that the lobotomist looked at my hand and she kind of leaned over, she goes, yeah, what's that? Like, yeah, I'm going to steal and ruin anything you want. I'm going to go have your sister fucked in. Like, and this is a transgender. And I think you don't understand how vengeful and crazy these transgenders just very specifically are. They're fucking disgustingly, mentally fucking crazy and vengeful. When most of them, when I come around them, like, they're just very vengeful because they only look, including the gays, what is it that Hector, Michaela, and my mother and Frankie has that we can steal and make it into ours to help Kenneth from the radio station, because he supported the 97.90 Black Community, a hip-hop station, and this is for the gays and the transgender movement from top to bottom. But I'm always polite. I always try to say excuse me. I try to get out of people's ways. I'm telling you right now, Michaela, I walk into that magic time machine very specifically because they know that I showed up there. You showed up there, and I worked there because of what these people are doing. They know that you got involved and they want to retaliate. I know you're doing it with the greatness of your heart. I know you're a beautiful person. It's not going to change. They're out for blood. They're out for blood, and they want to scum anything they get their hands on, and they're going to sink. When you get this number of people involved, they're going to attack. They're going to start searching any straight men, any straight women, and very specifically, they're going to want to target people that you're not around your circle. You're not going to know what they're going to do to you, like lesbians. Now, Lindsay Wessinger is a lesbian. Okay, there are other women out there that are real women, but they're lesbians. They fuck women. They don't have anything else. You won't be able to tell when they get around. A lesbian gets around another female to tell and get information from you and manipulate you to then sell you for sex to who they want you to go to for it profit Kenneth and the gays and transgenders. So I say this, Michaela, please be careful. They were charging at me when I was at that place, and they charged me inside when I went to the restroom. When I'm going to use the restroom, and it was Kenneth's supporters. I'm swearing, this guy they're all generating any vibe, character that Kenneth has, the way that he walks, the way that he behaves, the way that he looks. They're all in spirit for him, and that from top to bottom. And it's to target my mother and target you and me. I'm telling you, please be careful. I don't believe I don't know, but to my understanding, our biological father isn't alive anymore. They scummed him. They got rid of his life if he's no longer available in this world to speak to anymore. And I can tell you this, if he happens to still be alive, they're scumming him to the fucking ground. I'm telling, in this house, when I go on the bus, when I get anywhere I go. And let me tell you, my father who raised me had the ability to have sex with a woman and was getting an erection, which was with my mother. That's it. A real gay man can't do that. He can't. He's not attracted to women. So it's weird because my biological father, it's weird because my father, Raymond Palomo, he was an identical twin. He never got to reunite with his identical twin, and I've always, since I was a kid, I always thought about hiring People Search, or whatever those agencies that find missing people, or like long lost relatives. I was always was wanted to put my efforts that if I had ever gotten wealthy and my dad could live long enough, but it's too late now, that I could prove he had an identical twin. My father was an identical twin. He had an identical twin, and I pointed him out in front of Frankie, which can verify this, and my mom. I met this guy in person. I'm telling you. He was an identical twin, but he never reunited because my dad never knew. And you'd be able to verify it. I'm sure if you did, I'm sure from all the people that are involved, they can verify that he was an identical twin. I'm sure but for some, since they kicked me out of the picture when I was 18 years old, 19 years old, they made sure that it got covered up, not knowing that he really was an identical twin, yet he was. So he was an identical twin that was straight. My father he was an identical twin that was able to have sex with women, but I don't know how it goes, for gay guys, that how can you, if you're gay, then you can't get an erection with them because you're not attracted to them. And I'm not gonna hate somebody for that, it's just not attracted. You're born that way, but he was having sex with my mother, and I saw it. I could hear it, the way my father was, My father was buying me Playboy magazines when I was a kid, looking at women and be like, that's a great pair of looking vagina, it's a great looking pair of tits, he would be like that all the time. But thought I'd make this video in efforts to help my mother and the team that is, I don't know, I was thinking, one of the other things I want to talk about before I wrap this video up even more, I think Michael Jordan is involved. I think Michael Jordan may have been the person. I know it sounds crazy. My mom's wearing a Michael Jordan t-shirt, and I'm sure there was other people that also got involved. Maybe he was the one that bought my mother the car. I don't know. Whoever it was, I don't know what the situation was, but I can tell you this, from the dearest of life, that I really hope my mother is protected, and knowing that the wrongdoing that they did to me and my mother and father, what they did to my immediate family, exterminate my mother, smother her like the worthless bitch that they treated her as. And my mother was such a loving, kind, unbelievable person, greater than any of these people think they could even understand. And what Kenneth did and his team of queers and transgenders that are attacking me and my mother, including with his mother Sarah and that immediate family. But I think it's important for me to talk about this. I'm telling you, they're swarming like crazy, fighting for the transgender gay movement for Kenneth. Everywhere I go, they don't give they are lying for how disgusting this piece of shit is, and want to honor him as a fucking hero, and make sure that I get beaten to understand that by threat and by force. And they just train me. So I want to say this because I love my mom very dearly. And I had to call my mom the other day. Some lady threatened me when I was walking and leaving her house, telling me, you don't want to leave her rest, leave her alone, like yell. And looked over at me and goes, no lo quieres dejar cansar, which is, you don't want to let her rest, leave her alone, shooing me away from her communication with my mother's twin. When I left, and it was some transgender that was doing it with some gay guy that was walking with her. So they're threatening me when I walk over there. And my mother didn't even know, and I called her right away, said, Mom, you're okay? Some lady was fucking yelled at me and says, yeah, she says that, that I was bothering you, and that I need to get away. So, I hope this helps, because it is the past, and they're just going to keep doing it. It's never going to stop.